One man is being victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet who millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
Is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
Good morning, everybody. 8 o'clock in the morning. This is a bright and early show for the early risers. Whew, man, it's early for me. I had to get up, take a shower, walk the dogs, run in here. Didn't even have time for breakfast because don't want to miss what is about to happen. So if you didn't see it last night, I have the, let's call it a workshop where Charlie Kirk and Scott Bessent talked to some college kids, and he asked them answered some financial questions from the college kids, and it was so good that I feel that it could really help some adults as well. So I'm going to play that before the press conference. Press conference starts at 8:30, she says. We will see. So that's 27 minutes from now. We should be able to get through most of what Scott Bessent said yesterday. We had some technical difficulties. People said things were glitching last night, so I wanted to go ahead and replay that. So for those of you who haven't seen it, I think you'll find it of value. Somebody emailed me or texted me yesterday and said, Barry, why are you spending so much time on this financial stuff? Here's why. You got 4 years. You have, actually right now, 3.5 years. You got 3.5 years to get it done. Don't think in your mind that it's an automatic and that the Democrats aren't going to be viable in 2028. And God help us if they get back in power. If somehow J.D. Vance doesn't win, or if Donald Trump doesn't run again, you better be ready. And so what I'm seeing on the landscape right now is tremendous opportunity. And I just feel it's incumbent upon me to let you guys know what I'm doing and how I'm going to be taking advantage of it so that if you choose to, you can as well. That's why I've been spending so much time on the financial aspect of what Donald Trump is doing, because in my estimation, it goes 1 and 2 with the immigration. Get rid of the newcomers, make a very strong and prosperous United States. But it falls on deaf ears if you are not engaged and if you're not taking advantage of it. There is so much BS out there in the news, which I will continue to cover because people like that stuff for whatever reason. But I've got my eye on a prize. And I've talked to Robin, and I've said, babe, we got a couple years to really bank. We right now, as he's pushing the Fed to lower interest rates, as things are with gold and all these things are looking very, very good. Different stocks you can look at depending on Bitcoin, AI, all these things are there to help you take advantage of opportunities. I'm pretty sure you're going to hear Scott Bessent say that today. As he gives his financial forecast, you better have pen in hand. He's going to talk probably for 30 or 40 minutes once he and Karoline Leavitt get on stage. And you better have pen in hand and listen very closely to what he says and then execute on that. So to give you a little idea of what's going to happen today, we're going to show you last night's workshop. Then we're going to do the press conference, and we'll take some questions after that. And then tonight, the big event, the rally in Michigan. I'm going to be back. I'm going live, I believe, at 5 o'clock is when I'm going live. I've got at 5:30, I've got the CEO, founder of Lear Capital, Kevin DeMeritt, will be here talking about gold and silver. And then I've got a special guest that I'm taping at 12:30 today that I'll play at the 6 o'clock show or 5:30 show, or 5 o'clock show rather, who is the Undersecretary of Homeland Security. She works very closely with Kristi Noem. So we're going to have her, we're going to have Lear, then we're going to jump into the rally, and I expect it's going to be a great time. So it appears at this point that I'm going to be going live at 5. So don't miss that. I'm going to post as soon as this is done. Within an hour, I'll have the post up for the 5 o'clock rally tonight. So without any further ado, and making sure my timing is right here, let's listen to what Scott Bessent said yesterday to the young people that Charlie Kirk had brought together. And I think it makes a perfect lead-in for what you're going to hear coming up. Because what the questions that these kids asked, and they had them prepared and they wrote down their questions, you're not going to hear that from the adult press. I would push all kinds of chips in that you're not going to hear these questions from the adult press later on. It's just not, they're just not going to talk about anything good. They're not going to talk about anything that's going to help you prosper. So listen to what he says here, and then listen to what he says at 8:30. So let's get going on this.
Okay, everybody, we have a very special, let's just say, conversation ahead of you tonight. We are going to be joined by the Treasury Secretary of the United States and a friend of mine, Scott Bessent, and over 1,000 Turning Point USA high school and college chapters across the country to discuss financial literacy. We know with all the economic pressures that are facing the next generation, as you can see, they're populating up on screen, all of our amazing Turning Point leaders. Hey guys, great to see you. That's the future of America right there. I'll tell you what, with all of the financial pressures facing the next generation, inflation, cost of housing, it's more important than ever to teach financial literacy, how to save money, how to invest. What does it mean to have compound interest? What is debt? What is good debt versus bad debt? What is consumer debt? What is credit card debt? What is a mortgage? Should you take out 2 mortgages on your home? What is a reverse mortgage? This stuff needs to be taught in our schools, and we are trying to lead the charge here with our Turning Point USA students. Without any further ado, let me welcome the Secretary of Treasury of the United States, who's doing a phenomenal job in the first 100 days here, Scott Bessent. Mr. Secretary, great to see you. Thank you for taking the time.
Hey, Charlie, great to see you. And this is part of Financial Literacy Month. And I think that there's nothing more important.
Well, thank you. I agree. And what we have here is over 1,000 of our Turning Point USA chapters, high school and college chapters, that quite honestly, in the next half an hour to 45 minutes, they're going to learn more about financial literacy because it's not taught in our schools. It's not taught in high school. It's not taught in colleges. And let me just ask you before we go to our first question, which is Trey from University of South Carolina. Why is it, do you think, that financial literacy has not been in our curriculum, Mr. Secretary? Can you comment on that? Because it's a major failing.
Yeah, Charlie, I don't know, because somehow it got a bad name. I'm older than all of you. I'm 62, but when I was younger, it actually used to be taught, and everyone used to think home economics was like how to cook, how to keep a house, but it was also how to keep a budget. And somehow, like home economics disappeared, shop disappeared, and all these other kind of strange transgender studies things showed up, and somehow they were more important than teaching people how to be self-sufficient.
I was on the last curve. It's funny. I went to MacArthur Middle School and we had home ec, and they got rid of it a couple years later. And it was very helpful because it was all about how to balance a checkbook, what is saving, what is investing, as well as some of the more basic stuff, how to do laundry, how to iron your shirts. And quite honestly, one that I appreciated, young men, here's how to tie a tie. What a concept, right? It's amazing how many young men don't know how to tie ties. Let's get to our first question here. As I mentioned, we have over 1,000 chapters here on the Zoom call. It's an honor to be speaking to you, Mr. Secretary. The first question here is from Trey. He's a Turning Point USA chapter leader at the University of South Carolina in beautiful Columbia, South Carolina. I was just there for a great event that unfortunately got rained out about an hour into it. Trey, great to see you, my friend. What is your question for the Secretary?
Well, it's always good to see you, Charlie. We had a blast on April 7th, and Secretary Bessent, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you tonight. And I have a question for you, Mr. Secretary. So, what practical changes is the Trump administration making that are going to be helping young people, such as number one, get married, two, own a home, number three, afford kids because this is really a big reason why President Trump won back in November. Young people were looking at being the first generation since Washington, where they weren't, expected to be as well off as their parents were. So, my question.
Trey, all three excellent points, and I don't know if you know it, I am from South Carolina, so go Gamecocks. At the Trump administration, we are trying to address this incredible affordability crisis that was created by the last administration, and it is a combination of the out-of-control prices, the out-of-control government debt, and we'll come back to that on why that's very important. If I was a young person, not fair for my generation to pass it down and then bring down interest rates, bring down the energy cost, and also create economic security, because one of my big sayings is that economic security is national security is economic security, and they're really tied together. So, I'll work backwards here, and I'll say that I think one of the few good things to come from COVID was it was a beta test that if we got into a kinetic war, could the U.S. be self-sufficient? And it turns out we're not. We couldn't supply our own medicine. We don't have a lot of rare earths, which go into the most of our machinery. The semiconductors are all made on the island of Taiwan, steel. So we're trying to bring all those back home. For economic security, one of the reasons I came out from behind my desk in Charleston was I was so alarmed by the way the Biden administration was just spin, and I thought it was deeply cynical what they were doing. They were running up the debt, and then they were going to come and say, we have to raise taxes, and we were going to become like a European-style social democracy. And in this slow growth, high tax environment, that's the worst thing that young people like you could start out in. And then the last thing is the high government debt. It pushes up interest rates. So we have a plan to bring down the government debt and also to make the U.S. energy independent and keep energy prices low.
Phenomenal answer. Thank you, Trey, for that. And yes, Mr. Secretary, I did choose the South Carolina question first. There's a little bit of a wink and a nod to the courtesy of you making time. You got to go back home. And so, and I want to add on to that just a second as we get Ryan queued up here from Wichita State University. which is when young people do not own stuff, when young people do not have a stake in the American dream, it can set the prerequisite for radical socialist politics. Ownership of goods, ownership of property is a necessary ingredient for the flourishing of the American middle class. Ryan, great chapter leader for us at Wichita State University. Ryan, great to see you. What question do you have for the secretary? And you got a great chapter there. I think you got almost 10 people there. And so say hello to the secretary from Wichita, Kansas.
Well, thank you, Charlie and Secretary Bessent. And our question is, what advice do you have to young people listening on how they should approach wealth building?
Ryan, another good question, and I'm going to give you an answer that I think is not obvious. Everyone wants to be a great investor, and that's super helpful in terms of how you manage your assets. But the other way, and Charlie alluded to it earlier, is how do you manage your personal balance sheet? How do you manage your personal finances? And how aware are you of your risk tolerance? And a good thing about being a young person is you should have more risk tolerance. There used to be, and I'm not a proponent of this, but there used to be a very easy rule of thumb. You took 100, subtracted your age, and then that's the percent of your net worth that should be allocated to equities. And then over time, as you got closer to retirement, you'd have more fixed income, fewer equities. But one thing that I would really tell everyone to think about is like personal tax planning. There's so many things that you can do that in terms of, do you want to live in a low tax state? Do you want to live in a high tax state? The savings plans, when do you want to start? When are you able to start putting money away? Even if it's $100 a month, makes a big difference. And I would echo what Charlie says, is we want to have stakeholders in the system. You want everybody to be part of the system, and you also want people to believe in the system. You want to be smart about your insurance. Is it a good idea when you're very young? You can buy very cheap life insurance. That's a great tax advantage savings product over your life. Where do you keep your money? You want your money to be in a safe and sound bank, but many people get very lazy. And if you have a money market account and a checking account, money market account's probably going to pay a lot more. It can be a little bit of a pain every week or every month, but keep the money in the high earning account and then just move it over to checking or debit as you need it. And the main thing too is just when you're young, don't get over your head in debt. College of Charleston, where I live, has a great program for kids. I'm sure all of you have seen freshman year, American Express, all the other credit card companies are out on campus. They're here, sign up. This is going to be great. And before you know it, you're into the semester, you're 2 semesters, you're over your head in debt. You're having trouble making ends meet, maybe have to drop out of school for a while, get a job, your grades go down. So, as Charlie said, having smart debt, and normally credit card debt is not smart debt.
Excellent answer. And that's really important, guys, to understand also, and I'm sure we'll get to this at some point in the conversation, but if we don't, learn the tax laws. Now, Mr. Secretary is working on a phenomenal tax bill with the president that will hopefully go no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and all that other stuff. But understand that a mortgage actually has some tax benefits to it, to a home. So understand that credit card debt has no such advantages in the tax code system. In fact, you want to try to borrow money on something that gets more valuable. By the way, that was the argument for student loan debt in a year past, right? Years past. Well, you're going to get more valuable over the next 30 years, so you might as well borrow money on yourself. Well, understand that, going and spending money on experiences, going out to eat or going on vacations, those are very diminishing returns over a long period of time. And so understand the different types of debt is critically important. Okay, next, we have a high school chapter here. We know we have more high school chapters than college chapters at Turning Point USA. It is Andrew, Nick, and Knox from Fort Worth Country Day High School in Fort Worth, Texas. Great to see you guys. What is your question for the secretary? And I love the hat.
Hello?
Yes, you are on. I don't know if it's Andrew, Nick, or Knox. What is up, and what is your question for the secretary? Okay, you got to make sure you unmute yourself. Let's just try that. If not, we'll go to the next question.
Hello?
Yes, we hear you now.
Okay, so it's a three-part question. The first part is, can you explain why the dollar is the world reserve currency? The second part is, how does that help America? And then the third part is, are we at a risk of losing that?
Nick, good questions. I'll work backwards there. We are not at risk of losing it now. I think if we continued with the Biden administration's reckless policies, there's a chance that we might. I don't believe we are. What President Trump has instructed me to do is to put in great economic policies that makes the United States the best place to invest, the best place to compound your capital, best place for innovation, best place for upward social mobility, wealth accumulation, to be able to keep more of what you make, but a very attractive destination for foreigners to bring in their money. Because, we take the stability that we have here for granted. We take the fact that our markets, are free and fair. Around the world, it's not like that. Argentina, that I just visited 3 weeks ago, has a very dynamic president. You may have seen him, President Milei. And he is having to save his country. But Argentina, 100 years ago, was the 9th richest country in the world. Now I think it's something like 120th. So people like Argentinians want to put their money here. And then why is it important to be the reserve currency? Because it gives us low-cost borrowing, gives us the authority over the rest of the world in terms of issuing debt, in terms of the world is priced in dollars. So gives U.S. companies an advantage, gives the U.S. government an advantage for borrowing, and really helps us maintain our defense posture and our foreign presence. Everybody wants to be in the dollar. Commodities are priced in dollars. Oil is the most important commodity in the world. It's priced in dollars. So we got to work hard to maintain our reserve currency status. I'm sure that we are going to do it. And President Trump did an incredible job in his first term. There was some bad behavior by the U.S. government in terms of fundamentals, and now we're going to be back on a good track. And I can tell you, everybody in the world wants to come here now.
And I will add on top of that as well. Everybody in this audience, you guys have inherited really what is a birthright, which is the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency status. We do not want to lose that. Look at that right here. Losing that would be detrimental and potentially catastrophic. And President Trump wants to try to decouple the BRICS. Joe Biden did nothing when it came to BRICS. He couldn't care less. The fact that these countries were trying to assemble an alternative to the dollar, a big problem. Jack is the next question from Towson University in Towson, Maryland. Jack, what is your question for the secretary?
Hello from Towson University. Thank you, Mr. Kirk. We hope to have you sometime down here in the future. And thank you, Mr. Secretary, for taking our question. So our question is, there is a lot of concern that the Trump tariffs may increase product prices sometime in the relatively near future. So when can we expect prices to decrease, and how will that benefit college students in the long run who are already broke?
So the tariffs, we'll see where the negotiations come out. Tariffs are more like a one-time price change. So we could see a price adjustment over the coming months. But at the same time, we're seeing rents go down. We're seeing energy prices go down. My cousin from Daytona Beach, Florida, if you could believe it, gas in Daytona Beach is $1.92 a gallon. So we've seen about a 20% decrease in energy prices. And President Trump is committed to lowering taxes. So the way to think about it, the price on the shelf may go up slightly, but your take-home pay will go up. The sort of what we would call the after-tax earnings for whether you're single or for a household will go up. And then the other big tax that is really an invisible tax is regulation. So the average household in America, the cost of regulation increased by about $3,000 per year under President Biden, and we are working on cutting that back. So you should be able to see a substantial decrease in regulatory burden.
It's phenomenal, and I believe we're going to have a conversation in a little bit about inflation, and I do want to get into that because the number one primary driver of inflation is government spending. We have a debt-financed government spending, cheap money spigot, and it's a tough thing to decouple there. But we have a lot of advantages, and one of the advantages we have is our people, our obviously world reserve currency status, the entrepreneurial capacity of America. Also, artificial intelligence is massive. We are going to become the AI capital of the world. Jacob is here. Jacob is from Green Valley High School in beautiful Henderson, Nevada. Jacob, what is on your mind?
Okay, before Jacob starts talking, we're getting ready for the press conference. It appears as though the White House has begun the countdown. Whenever they put this banner up, it means they're just about ready to begin. And then she will walk out and they just start talking. So that's their upcoming banner. We will continue watching this until she walks out. Looking at the press conference area, I'm surprised a lot of these people did show up on time. They seem to be ready to go. A lot of different faces in the press conference room. So I'll finish. If you guys at the end, there's probably still 15 minutes left of that workshop with the college kids. I'll put that back on after Karoline is done. And we can listen to, those of you who haven't seen it can stay around and listen to what she's saying. Just again, programming notes. Today at 5 o'clock, we go live with the big Trump rally in Michigan. You'll see the banner go up right after this. Not going to do an afternoon show because in between, it'll allow me to, and we got this morning, and then I'll post, I have like 2 videos to post, but there won't be live videos. And then just go live at 5. It gives me some time to get some more Bibles out. We just got, let me just check here. We just got another shipment of Bibles just came in. So I'm catching up, trying to catch up. We've had over 900 requests for Bibles. 900. 900. Do the math on that. So Robin and I are just be patient. They are coming. They are coming. 900 Bibles. So we're trying to clip it off at like a 50 at a time so we can just start chipping off before we do that. And so we held back doing the t-shirts until we can get through 900 Bibles. Got to buy them, got to have them sent to us, and then we've got to ship them back out because you can't drop ship Bibles. You actually have to have them. It's a major undertaking there, but so worth it. If I can help people and spread the word and get people Bibles, so be it. That's what we're going to do. All right, so as I figured, it's 8:29. Well, you can tell she hasn't walked out because you still see the screen there. And let me just check something. Nope, she's not live as of yet, and you're just seeing the billboard. So while we're waiting, let's go ahead and talk to that. Yeah, that is amazing. 900 of them. Nah, I had no idea. I had no idea we were going to see that. I thought maybe we'd see a couple hundred, but we've had over, not just 900, over 900 requests. So we're getting those Bibles out. Woo. What's this one? The website went from, yes, Brat Girl, I think I got yours. I will check. The website should be working now. Yeah, about 900. Most of them came after the last prayer night, and which was phenomenal. So we're feeling blessed and everything else. So as I've been saying, I'm doing more of these financial things as well. I'm going to keep doing the news. Everybody loves the meat, the red meat. That's what I'm going to call it, the red meat of the daily crap that goes on, which just doesn't seem to change. It was so funny. I talked to you guys about the White House Correspondents' Dinner and how they said, oh, we're going to be more accurate and more truthful, and that lasted about 24 hours. And you guys saw yesterday President Trump's team put up billboards with all of the newcomers and their crimes, and what do? They blocked them out. They don't want people to even see these crimes. They couldn't wait to put President Trump's mugshot out there. Couldn't even wait. They were frothing at the mouth to get President Trump's mugshot put everywhere. But no, we don't want to hurt or impugn the newcomers. We can't do that. And I've seen today at least 3 or 4 posts on X where they're saying the kids got deported. Just absolute lies. So again, if you were here and you heard some of what these kids were saying, they were actual questions about finances. How can we do this? What's the best way to do that? You think you're going to hear it from these people? I'd be amazed. I'm sitting here right now, and we could take a wager. We don't have drinks or anything, so we're not taking shots. But, you know, when you see them, when you hear that first question, and it has nothing to do with financial literacy. Nothing. So the tariffs, and what do you think about Canada? Canada just had an election. I'm the Secretary of the Treasury, morons. I'm here to talk about financial wins and how to improve things. But yeah, but you know, what about Medicaid and Medicare? They won't talk about no taxes on tips. They won't talk about no taxes on overtime. Not going to talk about it. So I could be wrong, but I'm interested to see how they're going to address this information that Scott Bessent and Karoline Leavitt, because she's going to come out and do the preface. She's going to say, here's what we've accomplished in the first 100 days from a financial or treasury aspect. And she's going to read off everything, and they'll be like, filing their nails, looking at the clock, whatever. And then when he talks, he's going to make a statement as to what's going on. I can't wait to see what these idiots say. Especially somebody like Caitlin Collins. This might be too early for her. They might have sent in the JV team at this point. I don't know. But, yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't give them much credit for what they're going to do. Wow, that's very nice of you. Thank you very much. That's very nice of you. Thank you. Every press conference should be in front of those signs. I was thinking the same thing, because right now what you're looking at is one of the monitors behind the stage, and then that'll go off when she walks out. But they should just put it up there. But they never seem to cover this stuff anyway. I think it's Kareem Pierre or Circleback Saki. Yeah, really. Oh man. But what I was saying, what's to say? Where was that? Barry, these young adults on TP give me hope for the next generation of young adults. Very smart, engaged questions from them. Those are the type of leaders I want to see. I don't want to see the ones that are marching out there and doing all kinds of protests and river to the sea and all this. What are you going to do to help America? How are you going to help build upon what this country has been? You don't hear it. You don't even hear it in the news. And it just gets me so frustrated, because we're seeing someone who actually wants to see this country prosper. And they never talk about it. And to me, there's two things they don't talk about. They don't talk about Jesus, and they don't talk about prosperity. Neither. And they very seldom, if you sat through an hour of CNN or MSNBC, they very seldom talk about the things that can improve your life. What can make your life better? They're zooming in, so I'm not sure if she's ready to come out yet. Nope, not yet. But yeah, take the test yourself. Turn on CNN. Try not to vomit, but turn it on for like 30 minutes. Or turn on MSNBC for 30 minutes and tell me in that 30 minutes how much of their programming is to help you have a better life. I'd love for you to take that challenge yourself. How much of their program, which is why we have so many crazy people. They're not saying anything in the news, nothing at all, as to how your life can be better. Of course, the old thing in advertising and media is if it bleeds, it leads. So say the worst things possible. Things blew up, people got killed, people are poor, people can't do anything, people got stabbed, pushed in front of a train. Got anything for me? Anything how I'm going to make my life better? No, that's boring. We don't want to talk about that. Everybody wants the blood and guts. And I just feel intrinsic because I know when I'm not on camera, when I'm not doing this show and I'm not talking about news, all I talk about is how can I do better? And Ashley, if she was ever going to get on screen, she'll tell you, because sometimes when she'll text me, my reply will be, how does that matter? And she's like, oh, yeah, I want to live an 80-20 life. What is that 80-20? I want to focus in that. And that's something, if you want to look it up, you guys want to look up something, I'll tell you. If you've never heard of Pareto's Principle, Pareto, Pareto's Principle. I want to spend 80% of my time on the things that matter and 20% of my time on things that don't. Things that don't. Watching television. Let's see, she hasn't walked out yet. Things that don't. Checking out tapes and videos of MSNBC and CNN. 80% on things that do. And if you take that Pareto's Principle and put it towards your life and say, I'm going to spend 80% of my time on things that can improve my life. Your relationships, your pocketbook, your pets, 80% of your time. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I work 9 to 5. Okay, how do I spend 80% of my time on things I want to do to improve my life? Because there's your answer. Maybe that job you have isn't what you really need to be at because you're spending 80% of your time on something that's not improving your life. Which means you got to find that 80% off of work so you don't have to spend all your time at work. You can move on. Yesterday, I talked a lot about real estate because I used to spend, and not as much time because I'm more proficient in my searching, but I would spend 80% of my time trying to find deals. And you hear Trump say it all the time, and I laugh because you don't hear that on the other networks. Nobody talks about doing deals. So if you've spent 80% of your time looking at a deal, whatever that deal may be, something, maybe you want to get involved with a hairdresser salon. I think that's what it's called, beauty salon, or this or that. And you spend 80% of your focus learning about it before you even execute. What do you think the payoff's going to be? What's your return on that? Versus, there we go.
Good morning, everybody. Happy first 100 days. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that the bipartisan Take It Down Act passed the House last night. This important legislation was championed and guided through Congress by our wonderful First Lady, Melania Trump, including through her direct advocacy on behalf of survivors during her passage, the passage efforts. The Take It Down Act criminalizes the publication of non-consensual intimate imagery and requires social media and similar websites to remove such content within 48 hours of notice from a victim. The First Lady thanks all those who voted in favor of this important legislation, and the President looks forward to signing it when it arrives on his desk. Today officially marks 100 days of promises made and promises kept by President Trump. This has truly been the most historic start to a presidency in American history. After building the greatest economy in the world in his first term as president, President Trump is in the process of doing that all over again. The American people trust in President Trump. Since his first day in office, President Trump has focused on defeating the Biden inflation crisis, bringing down the cost of living, and making the United States the best place in the world to do business, invest, create jobs, and innovate. And President Trump's efforts are working. 345,000 jobs have already been added since the start of President Trump's term. Last month's jobs report saw nearly 100,000 more jobs than economists predicted, and it was the fourth highest month for private payroll growth in the past 2 years. 9,000 manufacturing jobs have been added to the economy already. This is a sharp contrast to the 6,000 manufacturing jobs that were lost each month in the final 2 years of the Biden administration. The U.S. employment rate remains at historic lows. And thanks to President Trump, Americans are seeing price relief for the first time in years. The last inflation report showed the first consumer price decline since the COVID pandemic, a decrease in energy prices, and real average hourly wage growth. President Trump is delivering on his promises to lower costs for American families and businesses. Prices across the board for everyday goods have seen declines since this president was inaugurated. From airfare to used motor vehicles to prescription drugs, prices are dropping. In fact, last month's drop in the price of prescription drugs was the largest ever recorded. And after Joe Biden botched the response to the bird flu, President Trump and Secretary Rawlings' aggressive plan have brought down wholesale egg prices more than 50% from Inauguration Day. President Trump ended Joe Biden's reckless war on American energy and fossil fuels and has restored American energy dominance. And Secretary Wright, Secretary Doug Burgum are working hard on that effort every single day. Oil and gas prices are now way down because of this bold approach. Gasoline prices down 7%. Energy prices are also down as well. The Department of Interior just announced a new offshore drilling policy that will boost oil production in the Gulf of America by 100,000 barrels per day. On the deregulation front, President Trump is committed to cutting senseless red tape, especially for America's small business owners who are the backbone of our economy. We know cutting regulation leads to lower costs and higher growth. The mass deregulation effort by this administration will help usher in the golden age of America, which is underway. Immediately upon taking office, President Trump blocked all of the unfinalized Biden-era rules, saving America's more than $100 billion, or $2,100 per family of four over the next decade. And the president also launched a bold multi-agency effort to roll back existing federal regulations that drive up the cost of living on hardworking families. This effort is projected to yield significant cost savings in the coming months, including the EPA's rollback of tailpipe emission rules for light-duty and medium-duty vehicles and the Department of Transportation's latest corporate average fuel economy standards. These two efforts alone yield $755 billion in total savings, or more than $8,800 per family of four over the next decade. In total, the combined savings from all of these actions equal just over $935 billion, or nearly $11,000 in real savings per family of four per the coming decade. The press is not talking nearly enough about the positive impact of President Trump's deregulation campaign. And investments from the biggest companies and countries in the world are pouring in under this president. So far, total investment commitments under the Trump administration have reached more than $5 trillion, including $500 billion from Apple in U.S.-based manufacturing and training, $500 billion from NVIDIA in AI infrastructure, $100 billion from TSMC and U.S.-based chips manufacturing, and the $500 billion private investment by OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank in AI infrastructure as well. All of these investment commitments are estimated to generate at least 451,000 new high-paying jobs for American workers and families. At this point, President Trump has secured more investments in the United States of America in 100 days than Joe Biden did in 4 years. President Trump is America's businessman in chief, and that's why these trillions of dollars in investments are flooding to our country. The business community is bullish on America because President Trump is back in charge. Tomorrow, the president will host CEOs and leaders from several companies that have made these investments to tout their historic commitments to our country and encourage others to follow suit. Under President Trump, there has never been a better time to invest in America. And the president finally said enough is enough and refused to allow America and our workers to be ripped off any longer on trade. President Trump implemented powerful tariffs to end the era of economic surrender and to rebalance America's trading agreements. More than 100 countries have already come to the table looking to offer more favorable terms for America and our people. There has never been a president who has created his own leverage like this president, and we are just getting started. Republicans in Congress are getting very close to passing President Trump's one big, beautiful bill, which will include the largest tax cuts in American history, strong border security measures, major military advancements, dramatic deregulation, and common sense spending reforms. As President Trump has said before, the best is yet to come. For more on President Trump's economic successes so far and the plans ahead, I want to pass it off to our incredible Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, who is here today, and we will open it up to questions. In our new media seat, we have Brendan Peterson, the financial services reporter for Punchbowl News. Punchbowl News covers power, people, and politics based in Washington, D.C., laser focused on Capitol Hill, the politics of legislating, founded in 2021, and it is the first newsletter that Capitol Hill and the White House reads every morning in the middle of the day and throughout the evening. Thanks for being here with us, and we'll start with you today.
Thanks so much for being here. I have a question for Secretary Bessent. On tariffs, the president said over the weekend that we are hoping that maybe tariff revenues could replace income tax. But we also keep hearing about the deals that the administration is pursuing. So my question is, what is the White House's ultimate objective here? Do you want to have long-term tariff revenue or deals that might reduce those tariffs?
I think it's a combination of both. So we're going to take in long-term tariff revenue. We put a process in place. We have 18 important trading relationships. We will be speaking to all of those partners, or at least 17 of them, over the next few weeks. Many of them have already come to Washington. What President Trump is referring to is the ability for tariff revenue to give income tax relief. And I think there's a very good chance that we will see this in the upcoming tax bill. The president campaigned on no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and the restoring interest deductibility for autos, for American-made autos. So tariff income could be used for tax relief on all those immediately.
So you think that there is a role for significant tariff revenue in U.S. fiscal policy?
I think that it is something that got put away a long time ago, and I think that tariffs will bring back American manufacturing and generate substantial revenues.
On manufacturing, we've seen some pretty grisly surveys this month from the Philly Fed, which saw the biggest drop since May of 2020, and the Dallas Fed, similar plunging outlook, poor shipping orders. What are American manufacturers not understanding about your push for onshoring in the U.S.?
Well, I think I was in the investment business 35 years, and I learned to ignore the survey data and look at the actual data, and the actual data has been quite good. The job data is good. Americans keep spending, and as Karoline said, we have these incredible commitments to bring manufacturing back on shore with record investment by domestic corporations and foreigners who want to come into the U.S.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The Chinese continue to say that the U.S. and China are not engaged in any consultation or negotiation on tariffs. You recently said you've talked to your counterpart, but more about, quote, traditional things like financial stability. So can you clarify, is the administration talking to Beijing specifically about tariffs or not?
Well, we're not going to talk about who's talking to whom, but I think that over time we will see that the Chinese tariffs are unsustainable for China. I've seen some very large numbers over the past few days to show if these numbers stay on, Chinese could lose 10 million jobs very quickly. And even if there is a drop in the tariffs, that they could lose 5 million jobs. So remember that we are the deficit country. They sell almost 5 times more goods to us than we sell to them. So the onus will be on them to take off these tariffs. They're unsustainable for them.
And they are saying you guys are not talking about it. So is that true?
Look, they have a different form of government. They're playing to a different audience. So I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty, again, of who's talking to whom. But as I said, I believe for the Chinese, these tariffs are unsustainable.
And very quickly, 2 days ago, you said you didn't know if President Trump had spoken to Xi Jinping. Do you know now?
Again, I would say Karoline and I have a lot of jobs around the White House. Running the switchboard isn't one of them.
Bloomberg, go ahead. Secretary Bessent, thank you so much for being here this morning. You've talked about the importance of giving investors certainty when it comes to the market, yet the Trump administration is continuing to negotiate several complex trade deals in a very sort of compressed time frame. When do you expect you'll be able to give the market some certainty around those deals? Do you have a deadline? Is it the 90-day pause? What are we looking at here?
Good question. And I think one thing that has been a little disconcerting for the markets is, President Trump creates what I would call strategic uncertainty in the negotiations. So he is more concerned about getting the best possible trade deals for the American people. We had 4 years of bad deals for decades of unfair trading, and we are going to unwind those and make them fair. What we are doing is we've created a process. I think the aperture of uncertainty will be narrowing, and as we start moving forward announcing deals, then there will be certainty. But certainty is not necessarily a good thing in negotiating.
Mr. Secretary, last night there were reports on the administration sort of walking back a little bit on the auto tariffs. Can you sort of just elaborate on that decision there and what we can expect going forward, and why sort of the shift in those auto tariffs?
Well, President Trump has had meetings with both domestic and foreign auto producers, and he's committed to bringing back auto production to the U.S. So we want to give the automakers a path to do that quickly, efficiently, and create as many jobs as possible.
Jasmine.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you, Secretary. Back on China, does the administration anticipate supply chain shocks or supply shocks coming now that cargo shipments from China are significantly down? And if so, are there plans in the process of how to address that?
I wouldn't think that we would have supply chain shocks, and I think retailers have managed their inventory in front of this. I speak to dozens of companies, sometimes daily, but definitely weekly, and they know that President Trump is committed to fair trade and have planned accordingly.
And then second question, can you outline the timeline for when you think some of these deals, particularly with your Asian countries like India, Japan, South Korea, you may have an announcement?
I'm glad you brought up our Asian trading partners and allies. They have been the most forthcoming in terms of doing the deals. As I mentioned, Vice President Vance was in India last week. I think that he and Modi made some very good progress, so I could see some announcements on India. I could see the contours of a deal with the Republic of Korea coming together, and then we've had substantial talks with the Japanese.
Andrea?
Secretary Bessent, just continuing on the path of the sort of progress. You said yesterday, I think, that it was could happen as early as this week or possibly next week. Can you give us a bit of a timetable? And then I wanted to ask about South Korea specifically. They've said that they probably won't be able to make a comprehensive deal until early July because of their elections. Japan also has elections. And to what extent are domestic factors complicating your efforts? Canada just had an election. Are you seeing that you might have to think about delaying the 90 days?
Well, I would actually take the opposite tack, that I think from our talks that these governments actually want to have the framework of a trade deal done before they go into elections to show that they have successfully negotiated with the United States. So we are finding that they are actually much more keen to come to the table, get this done, and then go home and campaign on it.
Sean.
Was there, I'm sorry, did you have a comment on whether it's something could happen this week or next week? For a deal. So, you said yesterday.
Again, I think that we are very close on India. And in India, just a little inside baseball, in India, in a funny way, is easier to negotiate with than many other countries because they have very high tariffs and lots of tariffs. So it's much easier to confront the direct tariffs when, as we go through these unfair trade deals that have been put in over decades, that the non-tariff trade barriers can be much more insidious and also harder to detect. So a country like India, which has the posted and ready tariffs, it's much easier to negotiate with them. So I think the India negotiations are moving well.
Sean, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Secretary. So it was reported this morning that Amazon will soon display a little number next to the price of each product that shows how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each product. So isn't that a perfect crystal clear demonstration that it's the American consumer and not China who is going to have to pay for these policies?
I will take this since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Is Jeff Bezos still a Trump supporter?
Look, I will not speak to the president's relationships with Jeff Bezos, but I will tell you that this is certainly a hostile and political action by Amazon. And Secretary, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I would also add that the bringing down the terrible Biden inflation has been a priority for the first 100 days of the Trump administration, and President Trump has done a great job of leading that. Since January 20th, interest rates, mortgage rates are down, gasoline and energy prices are down. We're expecting the further decreases. And as Karoline said, the big tax on consumers that goes unnoticed is deregulation or regulation, and we are deregulating and bringing that down. So, from a household income point of view, we would expect real purchasing increases. We've seen them over the first 100 days, and we would expect that to accelerate. We are doing peace deals, trade deals, tax deals, and deregulating. And the deregulation is a longer lead time, but I think by the third and fourth quarters, that's really going to kick in.
Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. A question for you and Secretary Bessent. We talk a lot about volatility and uncertainty in the marketplace, and the president has stated all along that he's more concerned about mainstream America, the American worker. You just talked about deregulation and this entire fair trade and reciprocals. What is your message to the American people in terms of letting them get through this disturbance and the outcome being greater and a greater good for the American worker, the American people, the American families?
I would say trust in President Trump. There's a reason he was reelected to this office. It's because of the historic success of his economic formula in the first term. And as I laid out at the beginning of the briefing and the Secretary has talked about and the President talks about every day, there's a proven formula that works. Massive deregulation, energy independence, and tax cuts, which are coming. And the Secretary is working very hard on that with our counterparts on Capitol Hill. If you want to talk about that, that's a huge deal to put more money back into the pockets of hardworking Americans. As for the fair trade deals the president is trying to negotiate, he's not just righting the wrong of the mess that he inherited from the past 4 years of the Biden administration. This is a mess that has been created for the past 4 decades that has sold out the middle class, that has moved jobs overseas. You think about our heartland, middle America, what towns used to look like, what they look like today. President Trump wants to restore the golden age, and it's a process to do that. And that process is underway, but he's put together a fantastic trade team. Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lutnick, Jamieson Greer, all working incredibly hard on this effort 24/7. But tax cuts are coming, and that's key. And Mr. Secretary, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yep. So it's really a three-legged stool in the economic policy. It's trade, it's tax, and it's deregulation. So we are in the midst of addressing, as Karoline said, these long-term trade imbalances. The tax bill is going much better than I would have thought when I took office on January 28th, and that's through President Trump's leadership. That Speaker Johnson, Leader Thune are united. Speaker Johnson, we had a very good meeting yesterday with somebody called the Big Six, NEC Director Kevin Hassett, myself, Speaker Johnson, Leader Thune, Committee Chairman Jason Smith, and Senator Crapo. And the tax bill is moving forward. It is going to give permanence to the 2017 Tax Cuts and Job Act, which will, back to the question on certainty, it will give American business certainty, it will give American people certainty, and then President Trump is also adding the things for working Americans that is talked about earlier: no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, making auto payments deductible. So that will substantially address the affordability crisis. And the other thing that I would note, and back to data, is that the Vanguard, one of the largest money management firms in America, said that over the past 100 days, 97% of Americans haven't done a trade. And in fact, individual investors have held tight while institutional investors have panicked. So individual investors trust, investors trust President Trump.
Megan, in the back.
Thank you both. Can you detail for us exactly what we should expect as far as relief on the auto tariffs front? And then further, Mr. Secretary, should we expect other industries to also get relief the way we've now seen for auto and tech as well?
I'm not going to go into the details of the auto tariff relief, but I can tell you that it will go substantially toward reshoring American auto manufacturing. And again, the goal here is to bring back the high quality industrial jobs to the U.S. President Trump is interested in the jobs of the future, not the jobs of the past. We don't need to necessarily have a booming textile industry like where I grew up again, but we do want to have precision manufacturing and bring that back. And another important, very important function of this that does not get talked about enough is national security. President Trump, his overriding the concern and belief is that economic security is national security is economic security. And we saw during COVID that our supply chains got cut off. And we need to bring back a lot of those supply chains, whether it's in semiconductors, medicines, the steel, and we have to onshore those. So it's a combination of making trade free and fair and remedying this gaping national security hole that he was left with.
I would just add, Megan, the president will sign the executive order on auto tariffs later today, and we will release it as we always do. Go ahead.
Secretary, any updates on the negotiation with the European Union, and is it hard to negotiate with the European Union?
Pardon?
Do you have any updates on the negotiation with the European Union?
I'm more involved in the Asian negotiations. My observation would be, goes all the way back to Henry Kissinger's statement, when I call Europe, who do I call? So we're negotiating with a lot of different interests. Some of the European countries have put on an unfair digital service tax on our big internet provider. France and Italy, other countries, Germany and Poland, don't have that. So we want to see that unfair tax of one of America's great industries removed. So it's going to be a give and take. So they have some internal matters to decide,
before they can engage in an external negotiation.
Edward.
Thanks, Caroline. Mr. Secretary, so contacts I have in the business community say that they're basically frozen for long-term investment because of the uncertainty around tariffs. How long do you think President Trump has to make a deal before there's damage to the economy?
Look, I think that what we're seeing is that business leaders, they've gone into a pause, and I think we're going to give them great certainty on this tax bill. And I think over the next couple of weeks, as I said, we have 18 important trading relationships. We'll put China to the side. 17 they are in motion. And then, as I said yesterday, I think there's a very good chance we're going to get this tax bill done. And the tax bill is going to be very powerful for domestic U.S. investment. So what we are going to do, one of the most powerful parts of President Trump's 2017 tax bill was full expensing of equipment. We are going to make that, as President Trump said in his speech to Congress, that will be retroactive to January 20th. The other thing that we are looking to add is full expensing for factories. So bring your factory back. You can fully expense the equipment and the building. We will couple that with deregulation, cheap energy, and regulatory certainty, and that will continue to make the U.S. the greatest destination for domestic and foreign investment.
And the president, well, if I can follow, just the president said that world leaders would like to meet with him in Rome, in Vatican City, about trade. Other than President Zelensky, who did the president meet with, and about trade, and when could we get some of those deals?
The president met with President Zelensky, as you know, which we talked about, and the president continues to be engaged with his fellow leaders around the world in the European Union. You've seen many of them visit the White House. I want to harp on, in closing, the point the Secretary just made. On the campaign trail, the president promised the American public that he was going to make America the best country in the world to do business again. The lowest taxes, lowest regulation, lowest energy costs of anywhere in the world. And if you do business in the United States, you won't pay a tariff, you won't pay a price. That's not just good for companies around the world, but it's good for the American worker. That's what this team is focused so hard on every day. We have work to do. The golden age of America is underway. But as I pointed out in the beginning, there's a lot of reason for the American consumer, the American CEO, the American small business owner to be confident and optimistic about this president and where we're headed. So you will hear more from the president himself later this evening. He is traveling to Michigan, as you all know. He'll make a stop at the Air Force Base with Governor Whitmer, and then we will head to a rally tonight where you'll hear more from him directly. So we'll see you in Michigan. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Caroline.
Well, I guess you can figure that the media here is just never going to do anything that is going to be positive for America. It's like Debbie Downer Central listening to these people. And all it would have taken, as I'm about to show you, all it would have taken is a quick peruse at what's going on in the news right now. Let me show you a couple things right now. I mentioned it in the chat. General Motors beats Wall Street estimates, reassesses full-year guidance amid auto tariffs. So when it says they beat expectations, they made more money than what they thought they were going to make, which is a good thing. It says General Motors reported its first quarter earnings before the bell Tuesday today. The automaker beat Wall Street expectations, but says it's reassessing, and they just did a call at 8:30. I believe here it is. Their earnings per share were $2.78. Wall Street expected $2.74. The revenue was $44 billion in a quarter. What was expected was $43 billion. Nobody mentioned that. Why did nobody mention that? I don't know. They don't want people to know. They don't want people to know when things are going well. And then on top of that, okay, you're going to love this. Wait till you see this headline, because this headline should make your head go, huh? What? I don't understand. UPS will cut 20,000 jobs on likely lower Amazon shipments. Might explain why Amazon's pissed off. However, their profit was up. Their profit beats estimates. Nobody talked about that. Nobody. They're not talking. So wait a second. So you're cutting 20,000 jobs because of Amazon, but your profit is up. Make that make any sense? That's what people should be digging into, is how is your profit going to be up that high? Here, let me show you further down in the article. UPS first quarter profit beat market estimates, and a parcel delivery giant said it will cut 20,000 jobs to lower costs in an uncertain economy in anticipation of weak volumes from its largest customer, Amazon. Shares of the company rose 2%. All right, I understand. That's a huge jump. Wall Street said, what? You're getting rid of 20,000 jobs? Oh, that's fantastic. And the shares go up 2% in one day. After it expects to save $3.5 billion in 2025 from job cuts and shutting 73 leased and owned buildings by the end of June. So people who aren't looking will say, well, that's horrible. 20,000 people are losing their jobs. However, you're seeing how people are, it's basically lateral. Now those 20,000 people, they're not going to stay unemployed. With all of the companies bringing in investment into America, there's going to be jobs for people who are going to be working on American stuff. UPS had to drop 20,000 people to make their stock and their revenue go up because Amazon can't compete anymore. These 20,000 people will now shift to American companies that are going to begin prospering. But the headline and how they wrote it, just if you just read this headline without somebody talking to you about it, it's like, what? UPS to cut 20,000 jobs, but their profit beat estimates. The media absolutely sucks unless you dig in and understand. And so these are just two stories from this morning. And did mention it. All it was China. Let me see. Okay, here's a good story. And this is with everything going on with RFK Jr. Coke keeps full year forecast, says it expects tariff disruptions to be, quote, manageable after Pepsi cuts earnings outlook. And so Coke is saying, we're good. Even with everything RFK Jr. is doing, everything with the tariffs, we can manage it. No big deal. Nobody in the press room talked about it. And just so you know, okay, in case you guys are wondering, Barry, this was posted at 6:30 a.m. Well before the press conference. They could have walked in there armed with this information, but they chose not to. China. It's useless. I mean, that's why I get so frustrated covering the press, because they don't want to talk about anything good for America. Let me see what else I can find since it's 9 o'clock and the markets are opening. The kind of stuff that people... All right, here's something. They won't let me come in because it's a paid article, so I can't show you guys that one. Let's see what else is there. Here's one. You got to look deeper on these articles, and the titles that they write are just crazy. Pfizer expands cost cuts. However, their quarterly profit estimates went up, even as sales fall. How is that possible? How do you make more money with less sales? You dig into that, and what you're going to find out is they were cutting cost. The more cost you come in, you don't have to have as many sales, but your profit goes up. Nope, nobody talked about that today. Let me see what else has happened. Anything new happening? Wait a minute. No, that's not. Canada's screwed. Oh, here's one for you. They're all over. Venmo revenue grows 20% with debt card payment volume soaring. So people are paying bills, by using Venmo, their debit card payment system. So they created this. PayPal said Venmo revenue grew 20% year over year in the first quarter, doubling the pace of total payment growth. Analysts from Jefferies and Compass Point flagged Venmo's momentum in branded checkout and debit cards as a key opportunity despite rising competition from Zelle and Square Cash. PayPal added nearly 2 million first-time PayPal and Venmo debit card users during the quarter, with total debit card payment volume climbing more than 60%. These people are nuts. They won't talk about it. They won't talk about the good stuff. And yes, there's also bad as well, but it's good. Just wanted to bring this stuff up. If you know where to look, you understand that these people have nothing but hate for Trump and hate for America. That's it. Yeah, why I hate the lefties is because they hate America. Oh, God, Goodberry says it. Let's see here. All right, so let me just show you why were those astronauts wearing high heels? No way the fake media news are happy people in life. No, they sit there, they're miserable. Absolutely miserable. So before I cut, I want to finish off with Scott Bessent last night talking to these college kids. And again, we still got like 15 minutes of this session or workshop that he had with these college kids, and just listen to the difference in the questions.
And what is your question for Secretary Bessent?
How's it going, guys? Just wanted to say I'm a super big fan. Thank you guys for taking the time to answer my question. My question, I wrote it down. Can you explain what causes inflation? People claim COVID disrupted supply chains all around the world, and that's what really caused inflation. Is that true, or did Biden directly spark it through bad fiscal and monetary policies?
The very nuanced and important question. Prices can go up during, over the short term during periods of shortages, but they want to come right back down. What happened was this terrible combination of what the Biden administration did, and it was exactly the opposite of what President Trump did under his first administration. So he cut taxes and deregulated. So when you deregulate, there's more supply of something. There's more supply of energy. There's more supply of housing. There's more supply of goods and services. So there was a demand shock for goods because that was people had more disposable income. At the same time, there was a supply response, so there was a greater supply of everything, and there was very low inflation, about 2%, which is the long-term average. Under the Biden administration, they were playing with fire anyway, and there were the COVID shortages, but they had a federal spending shock that was, as Charlie said, debt financed, and then they put in more regulations, so more regulations meant less supply, higher energy prices, higher house prices. So that was really the recipe for inflation. And what we're trying to do right now is deregulate, get the private sector going again. Biden administration, with this big spending, it was government jobs, and we are trying to do what I call reprivatizing the economy, bring down government spending, re-leverage the private sector, and I think that we are going to be very, very successful in that. We're already seeing rents go down. We're seeing energy go down. So supply and demand, the more there is of something, the more the price will come down. And we've stopped this crazy money printing, and we're going to get our borrowing under control because, like I said, it is for all of you on this call that it is not fair what has happened to leave you with this gigantic debt stack that you're going to have to work your way out of.
And I want to just piggyback on that, and let's add more context and color. If I could ask a follow-up, Mr. Secretary, which is that in 2008, 2009, our leaders had to make a choice. You remember this. You were running very successful businesses at the time. And it was very tempting to turn on the cheap money spigot. And I get it to a certain extent. I think you can make an argument for TARP, Targeted Asset Relief Program. The stimulus was questionable. But what was disturbing is that this prosperity from 2008 onward has, of course, been materially prosperous for some Americans, but it has actually only made the wealthier even wealthier, the wealthy wealthier, and it's been very hard for the middle class to own stuff post-2008 financial crisis because we have a government debt-financed economic system. Turning that off, if not managed correctly, can be very troublesome. Can you speak to the balancing act that you and President Trump have to navigate from the bond markets? Because being able to deal with all that, once you go and you let's just say indulge in cheap money, good luck getting away from it. Talk about that balance and how you guys now want to get us back to an actual material economy where we make stuff in this country.
Charlie, that's the essence of the Trump economy, and it's really two things, or I would say three. But one is bringing down this debt and deficits, but we're going to do it slowly. We didn't get here all at once. I tell some of the members of Congress who, they're good men and women, and they want to bring the deficit to zero tomorrow. And I said, look, our fiscal situation, we have a 350-pound, 2-pack a day, the patient on the ICU table, and he or she is not going to hop out of the hospital bed and run the Hawaiian Ironman. What we're going to do is do it slowly, because we didn't get here in 1 year. We're going to bring down the deficit about 1% every year, and during President Trump's term. And if we do that, we'll start paying down debt and creating value. The other thing, too, is I don't want to scare all of you, because one great thing that you have to look forward to is this incredible productivity boom. What really creates wealth is productivity. The same number of people, working either the same hours or fewer hours for more output. And with this AI boom that's going to be driven by the U.S. lead in technology and the U.S. lead in energy, and that's going to be the real secret sauce that you all are going to see for the next 10, 20 years of your lives in the U.S., that no one else has that combination. We have...
See, that you should rewind and listen to over and over. That is so important. For many of you who really haven't understood what AI is all about, he just told you. For the next 10 to 20 years, that is going to be the secret sauce for prosperity. He just said it. Real quick, SV sent me something, and I got two things I want to show you in reference to how the media is obfuscating and just not being honest with people. I have two things that were posted on X, and the first part of that I want to show you is look what time. Look at the timestamp of this post, 9 o'clock. So I'm live right now. SV is in here. He's live right now. And while they're at the press conference, this is at 9 o'clock, each one of them has a cell phone. They can get all kinds of information, so they could say, hey, Secretary Bessent, I just saw this. Can you tell me more about it? Nope, they ignored it. So let's go to the top of the post so you can see what they ignored. Here's what they ignored. Merck is dropping $1 billion to make cancer drugs in Delaware. Merck is building a massive new factory in Delaware to crank out its mega money maker Keytruda, a cancer drug that made them $29 billion last year. Why now? Because the tariffs are coming and Merck doesn't want to pay extra for making meds overseas. So it's going, quote, full made for America, made in America. The plant will make a new version of Keytruda that's easier to use. Think shot, not IV drip. It might save Merck when the drug patents start expiring in 2028. Bottom line, build at home, dodge the tariffs, keep the billions rolling in. And the source of that was the Wall Street Journal. $1 billion they're dropping in the state of Delaware, a blue state. Because of the tariffs, they're moving their business back to America. We'll make the pills here. We don't have to. Nothing. Crickets. You probably would never have heard that if I just didn't show that to you. And if SV didn't send it to me. You probably would never hear it. $1 billion plant. One plant. Boom, we're going to drop this in Delaware. And we're going to do all this stuff. All right. Then, here's another one. This one came out at 9:10 a.m. 9:10. You're sitting right there listening to Scott Bessent talk. You can get alerts if you know what the heck you're looking for, if you know who to keep alerts on. But, okay. What's this one say? This one is even bigger because it dovetails specifically to what Scott Bessent just said. Texas wants to go nuclear and fast. Move over, oil. Texas is eyeing a new title, America's Nuclear King. With the AI data centers, which he just said, with the AI data centers and heavy industry guzzling more electricity than ever, Governor Abbott is going all in on advanced nuclear power, specifically small modular reactors. You need to go do some research on that, because everybody thinks the big 3 Mile Island looking type of reactor. No, technology has changed. These SMRs are so much different. The plan, a $2 billion state fund, a brand new nuclear authority, and red carpet for private firms. Texas already dominates in fossil fuels and wind, and now it's aimed to be leading in next-gen nuclear fuel as well. Neither one of those stories, just those two that SB sent me, did they even mention. Which means it won't be on MSNBC, it won't be on CNN, it won't be anywhere. Nobody will hear about this. Either Merck or this. They won't hear about any of these things. These people are frauds. This is why I'm so frustrated with them, because they are completely fraudulent. This is great news for America. This is great news for the prosperity of America. And they're completely silent. They don't want you to know this. It's sickening. And I go through this all day, and I'm like, people aren't seeing the stuff I'm seeing. So you'd think to yourself, as we talked yesterday, maybe you might want to look at certain businesses around where these data centers are going to be. Might just be quiet. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Let me go take care of him.
The world's greatest technology sector, and we have the world's biggest energy sector. So, if you think about a barbell economy, we have technology on one side, energy on the other, and they're going to meet with AI. And then what President Trump has instructed his cabinet, the econ team like me to do, is to fill in the middle and bring back high performance manufacturing jobs. So, before, either you had to be in high tech, you had to be in energy, and everything in between just got decimated. We gave up on manufacturing. And look, manufacturing, that I don't. There's one comedian who said, I don't know about all of you. I want to wear Nikes. I don't want to make them. So we're not going to bring back the jobs of the past. We're going to have the jobs of the future here. And these are going to be, high tech, high value jobs. And if someone on the left took a shot at me the other day, they said, Secretary Bessent says that the laid off federal workers are all going to work in factories. And I said, that's so reductionist that when, a factory isn't just someone who works on the factory floor. And by the way, what's wrong with that? That those are great people, but, you're going to create marketing jobs. You're going to create accounting jobs. You're going to create the design jobs. We're going to bring all that back. So, I just think that the U.S. has just the right combination right now of technology and energy, and then we're going to fill out everything in between.
Phenomenal answer. Our last question will be here, Colin, Northwood University from Midland, Michigan. Colin, what is on your mind?
Hi, we are Northwood University from Midland, Michigan. We are America's Free Enterprise University. First, we want to thank Charlie and Secretary. Our question is, what is your stance, the Treasury's stance on regulations on data assets currents such as Bitcoin? And is the Treasurer exploring a central bank digital center? If so, what are the disadvantages of doing so?
Look, I think the digital assets are very exciting. I would advise all of you to understand what you're buying. It's not a casino, but to me, Charlie, great thing about digital assets, and I think most of you would have been very young during the great financial crisis, but there was something that was called Occupy Wall Street, and it was a group of people who, they were probably the progressive or left wing to begin with, but not everybody. There were people on our side of the aisle, and it was people who just thought the system was not working for them. The system had failed, and as Charlie said early on, we want people involved in wealth accumulation. We want people to believe the system works. And I think the great thing about digital assets is it's brought the new group of young people to the markets, or a whole group of people who just weren't invested in the markets. I will share my dirty little secret with all of you is, I'm from South Carolina, so I have a Dr. Pepper for breakfast in the morning. Not allowed to do it at home. So I ended up at the Circle K on Meeting Street in Charleston, South Carolina, most mornings, dressed, before I came to DC, dressed like this. Lots of the mostly young working class construction workers, mostly African American, in there in the morning and buying lottery tickets. And they'd say, Mister, when I win the lottery, will you manage my money for me? And I'd see them again and again. And I was sitting there thinking, if these young men were putting that same $10 or $20 a week into a crypto account, if they'd been buying Bitcoin for 5 years, they'd own the Circle K. So, and I think what we are trying to do in the U.S., the Biden administration really tried to make digital assets extinct. And I speak to these digital asset entrepreneurs, and they just said it felt like we had a bounty out on our head. A lot of the digital assets went offshore, subject to a lot of scams. And what we're trying to do is apply the U.S. best practices, rule of law to digital assets, couple that with American innovation, and make the U.S. the digital asset, the capital of the world. And I think we're going to do it. And so I think it's exciting. I'd encourage all of you to explore it. Over time, stores of value have changed, and clearly Bitcoin, Ethereum, they are becoming stores of value. And what I would encourage you to do, though, is think about your own risk tolerance. You probably, depending on your savings, there is some level. Digital assets are very volatile. But if they're going to be a good investment for the long term, then you could sit through the volatility. But if you want to be involved, think, what is the right amount that you're willing to risk? Is it 5% of your assets? Is it 10%? Is it 20%? And they really keep it well researched and decide what your risk tolerance is. That way, you're not buying at the top, selling at the bottom. You can do the opposite and always leave a little room to buy a little more.
Mr. Secretary, thank you for your time. We have 2 minutes remaining of what we're scheduled. The last question I have for you is, what do you wish you would have known at age 22? I mean, you ended up being very successful. You're the Treasury Secretary of the United States, incredible success in finance. What's the one thing that you wish somebody would have taught you that you would have internalized when it comes to financial literacy?
Charlie, I mean, it's going to make me sound like the most boring person in the world. Great tax planning. Like, just sit and
great
think.
Answer.
Think about tax planning, especially like once you have a family. But when do you want to buy a house? When do you not want to buy a house? How do you manage your finances? As you said, the mortgages are deductible, but you buy a house and it's but you're locked in one place. And then the other thing too is there's a famous baseball player, the only baseball player to bat over 400, Ted Williams, and he was interviewed once, and they said, Ted, how'd you bat 400? And he said, I only swung at strikes. And you're all young people. You are going to see a lot of things happening over your career. There are going to be a lot of great opportunities. And so the other thing I would say is don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid of volatility. Don't be afraid of tough situations. In my career, and then I'll get off, Charlie, is that I graduated from college in the mid-'80s. It was a crash of '87. There are these the savings and loan crisis, the Asia crisis, the dot-com bubble burst in 2000. And let's just say the dot-com bubble burst in 2000. I think Amazon stock may have gone from 100 to 3. And Warren Buffett says the biggest mistake that he ever made was not Jeff Bezos came to him and said, would you finance me? And he didn't. So that try to have a long-term, when you see a crisis or when you see a dislocation is probably a better word, think about the long term and always have some liquidity on the side. In 1987, the stock market crash was down 20-something% in one day. And I worked for this Middle Eastern family. And, I was 25. I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And the daughter of the family, who's only, if I was 25, she was 35. She came over calmly and she said, we've been saving up for a rainy day. And this is a great time to get involved. So have enough liquidity for a rainy day. Over the course of your life, be prepared to take advantage of very interesting situations, and always know your risk tolerance.
That's phenomenal advice. And remember that if you can figure out how to send the government less money, no offense, Mr. Secretary, you're going to be in a great spot. In fact, you're working to make it so that people send less money to the government. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Secretary. Let's have all the students on screen. Can you see that, Mr. Secretary? Thousands and thousands of students. They're all waving and thanking you for your time. And so
good. And Charlie, why don't you organize a visit for some of the Turning Point crew here sometime in the next couple of months? Love to host them here at Treasury.
We would love that. Thank you. We will do that this summer. We'll send a special group of students to the Treasury building, which is now open for business. Believe it or not, it was closed during Biden's entire term, which is just crazy. Insane. Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. Thank you to all of our great students and everyone that helped put this together. Talk to you guys soon.
All right. So in closing, one of his biggest pieces of advice, and I went over it last night, that a lot of people didn't seem to know. And a lot of people were shocked at that last piece that he said, when he said, figure out by using the tax code how to give the government less of your money. And I've always advocated for that, and I was shocked that a lot of people didn't realize that. Your tax bill is not a bill, it's an estimate. See, I don't think a lot of people take it that way. There is nothing that says you owe the government $6,000. No. That's their estimate on what you owe the government. Nobody ever wants to say that to people, or people who aren't gazillionaires. That's just an estimate. It means absolutely nothing. You determine what you pay the government. Not the other way around. Not the other way around. And I'll say it, in closing today, just so you guys can really write this down. It is 100% advisable. It is 100% encouraged to avoid paying income taxes. Do everything you possibly can to avoid paying income taxes. Well, Barry, isn't that illegal? The thing that's illegal is there a difference between these two words. Evading income taxes will always or could get you in trouble if you evade income taxes. But you are encouraged, as you just heard, you are encouraged to avoid paying income taxes. Well, what's the difference? Evading is, hey, listen, you owe this much and you just don't do anything, and you try to do untoward stuff like putting money in under your mattress or anything like that. That doesn't work. Avoid paying income taxes is using the tax code, which nobody teaches. There should be a class that goes from basically freshman in high school to the time you graduate. It should be Tax Code 101, 201, 301, 4. Everybody should be taught the tax code. You have to think to yourself, why is it that people aren't taught the tax code? Why have you, I'm assuming, why have you never been taught the tax code? Why is people over here know the tax code? They know exactly where to incorporate and how to shield assets to avoid paying taxes. There's a reason why some people down here in Florida will spend $25 million on a yacht that they never drive. Never even use, just sits in a dock. And that asset, that commodity, whether they want to hold it or sell it, it just sits there. And I'm not going to go into all the benefits for why they do that, but they're avoiding income tax. Let me rephrase that. Most people don't know the code. And so, as I said yesterday, you're stuck paying taxes using the 1040 EZ form. And I said yesterday, if you're using the 1040 EZ, you can replace those and say 1040 crazy. You're absolutely crazy if you're using the 1040 EZ form or anything sort of in that regard and just sending the government a check. You're not doing it right. Everybody on this side who's got any sort of prosperity or wealth knows how to avoid taxes. You even heard President Trump say that. Oh, President Trump didn't pay any money on his taxes. And it was during a debate with Hillary. And that makes me smart. And they dug all through his taxes, and they were complaining that he didn't pay taxes, but he's using the tax code. The same tax code they all use. Because, like he said, I know what you're doing. I've been with you. I know exactly the strategies. And I was just wondering, since 2016, we're almost 9 years away, how many people understood what he meant when he said that? How many people actually dug in and go, wait a second, what is he doing to avoid paying income taxes? Are there any strategies somebody like he is using that I don't know? Well, there's a whole lot of them. A whole lot. And in closing there, and it was just a 1 minute blurb, that could have been an entire hour. Because right there, if I was talking to Scott Bessent, I'm like, tell me the newer strategies that you guys are using to avoid paying income taxes. And I guarantee you he could go on for at least an hour. At least. How much time you got, kid? Oh, okay, I'm going to sit back. Go. Well, you can do this, 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 you can... But there are so many ways to avoid paying income tax. Those of you, that's why sometimes when I sit and I listen to people talk about, oh, I'm stuck, I'm doing this, I'm in this job, or I'm on a fixed income and there's nothing else I can do, I'm like, really? Really? Are you waving the white flag? Essentially, that's what you're doing. You're waving the white flag to the IRS. You are saying, you got me. How much of my money do you want? You're not going to hear it in the media. You're not going to hear it from anybody unless you talk to people who are using these tax advantages. There are so many. I mean, literally, we could spend show after show after show just talking about, and he mentioned a couple here, so you may want to rewind that. You didn't hear it during the media thing, but you heard it with these kids. You might have to rewind it, but he talked about the mortgage deduction and how you can use mortgage interest rates and how different, there's so many. But he was dropping those breadcrumbs for anybody who wanted to listen. Just telling you, just saying. Speaker Johnson says they won't have a bill on Trump's desk until July 4th. Don't wait on them. That is perfect that you posted that. Don't wait on them. I don't know what they're doing or how they're doing it. As I started this show at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I said, right then, this show was about finances. You're going to talk to Scott Bessent. I told you the media wouldn't talk about the good stuff. They don't want to talk about anything that can benefit you, and that you got 3.5 years. If everything gets done and Mike Johnson and they do this and they do that, great. But don't rely on them. Don't wait. You don't have. Somebody asked earlier, so you think the Democrats are going to win in 2028? No, I'm not saying that at all. I am not saying that I think the Democrats and the communists are going to win in 2028. What I am saying is I'm not going to leave it up to chance. I know right now that I've got 4 years to bank. I got 4 years to make sure that I don't care what happens in 2028. I got 4 years to be completely agnostic on the election in 2028. Where you have, you're set for life and like, I don't care who wins. I know what I'm going to do. I know the tax benefits. I know where I'm going to put money. I know if you have that kind of plan, do you care who wins? You care for America, but I'm talking about you personally, your pocketbook, your family's pocketbook. What are you going to do? What moves are you going to make? Because you know if they win what they're going to do. You know it's coming. So if you plan for the worst and you end up not having to use your worst plan, you're much better off. So me personally, I'm planning as if I only have these 4 years. Do I think he's going to lose, or rather J.D. Vance? No. But I'm planning as if they are going to lose. I don't want to wait till November of 2028 and go, oh, what do we do? Oh my gosh, what do we do? I'm going to be in November 2028, and God willing, I'm still breathing on this earth. I mean, like, okay, honey, so-and-so lost. Okay, where are we going on vacation? Don't care. Don't care. Put yourself in that kind of a position. Yeah, these next 4 years are critical. Don't wait. Don't wait and think, hey, we got Trump or his follower, J.D. Vance. Well, we got 12 years. You got 3. You got 3 that you can count on. Right? You may only have 2, but at least depending on like whatever Mike Johnson and these guys do. 4 years to make your money as long as it's legal. Absolutely. I tried filing my taxes with software, with and without filing my house mortgage. The only benefit is not paying a higher fee on my filing, so I don't even claim my mortgage anymore. Ain't gonna touch that. Paying my mortgage off at warp speed is my goal. Okay. If the Dems win, they'll be coming. They're going to want to tax She wanted to tax unrealized capital gains. That's the most ludicrous policy ever thought by any politician. I want to tax you on stuff you don't even have yet. Imagine that. She wanted to tax people. You forgot that, maybe. Unrealized capital gains on stuff you don't even have yet. She wanted to tax you. Looks like you're going to make money in 5 years. We're going to tax you now. They're going to find a way to take everything they possibly can from you. So make your moves accordingly. Yeah, Mary's correct. These next 4 years are key. We need to be ready. Absolutely be ready. All right, let me get ready to take some super chats here because I want to get out of here and get ready for the rest of the day. Well, there's 2 here. I think there's 2. Let me just see here. So I can just read these off really quick. The morning was easy. We have a awesome by Mr. Jerry Henson. Jerry Henson did something amazing, and he not that everybody's not amazing, but $200 for Bibles, and that's greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated, Jerry. Hold on, let me just put that on screen so people can see it. Hold on. Where's Jerry? Yeah. I want to show that. Where'd Jerry's go? Oh, wait a minute. Jerry Henson, Barry, I would like to help you with the cost of the Bibles. Thank you very, very, very much. And then there's another one from Vicky Rivera. Oh, it's Tommy Radcliffe. Thank you very much. I do itemized personal taxes for an individual with first home mortgage and 27 rental properties. No 25K deduction limit for real estate professionals. Non-passive account, 50% material participation required. Tommy knows something there. Tommy definitely knows what the heck he's talking about. That's the kind of person you're going to want to talk to. And then Vicky Rivera, how can I contact you? I'm a DAV, and would like to ask a question. Thanks for years of great content. Not sure what DAV is, Dav. But you can send us an email to showmail@fanfareshop.org. All right, so what do I have to do here? One more thing before I go. I've got this. Got to tell you about the fine people at Patriot Addict. All right, so before I go, I definitely want to tell you guys about this. I've got all my stuff sitting here. Patriot Addict is back with a brand new Trump collector's bundle called the Berry Pack. The Berry Pack is the ultimate Trump collection featuring the Trump sequel hat. I always do my hat changes here. Here's the Trump sequel hat as I have on. So you get that. You get a Trump watch. I don't seem to have one of those, and they've been selling out all over the country. A Trump blanket. Let me pull that over. And here's your Trump blanket. Right there. It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. It's beautiful. Nice big blanket. And then, of course, many of you already know about the Trump red knife, which is right here. You guys love this. Many people have gotten the Trump knife. It's a nice knife. This knife will come as a free gift as a part of the Berry Pack order. And all of this has no shipping fees whatsoever, no subscription, none of that. None of it. All 4 of these items would normally cost about $238, but they're practically giving them away for just $69 for all of them. For all of it combined. And be aware the prices have already gone up because they were $59, now it's $69. So I recommend that you take advantage of this and order them now. They set aside about 500 berry packs for Fanfare audience, and they're already down to the last few, and I can't guarantee this collection will ever be available again. So scan the QR code right over here, or visit berrypack.com to claim yours before they disappear forever. That's berrypack.com, or scan the QR code right here. All right, I'll be right back. I just want to say thank you to the Fanfare community. And if you're new here, I'd like to take a moment and welcome you. If you watch my videos, you've probably realized at this point that this isn't your usual podcast. The difference is that every single day I try to make this show an open conversation amongst friends. You see, I believe that speaking to friends, here and in your own circle offline, is the best way to push back against all the lies being told by the Democrats and the media. I encourage people in this community to welcome each other, and in doing so become a source of support for those seeking to unplug from the matrix. If you'd like to communicate on a deeper level, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, but if you'd really like to surround yourself with like-minded patriots, join our free and private X group by going to fanfareshop.org/group. When you join this free group, a few things will happen. One, if you haven't used X before, you can use X without venturing into the sewer that it sometimes can be. Two, you can share content with friends that you meet here. 3, you will get notified every time I go live, so you can't count on YouTube notifications. And 4, and this might be most important, you get content that I can't share on YouTube or Rumble. So please take a moment and join our free and private X group. Just go to fanfareshop.org/group. Remember, it's members only. There are 16,000 plus people in that group right now, getting close to 17,000. To join our free and private members only X group, just go to fanfareshop.org/group. We'll see you there.
Welcome back to Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
All right, before I go, I want to let everybody know tonight I go live at 5. Donald Trump will be speaking at 6 p.m. In Michigan. Huge rally. Join me. Love to see you. Hope you guys can make it. I'm going to take the rest of the day off and get some of these Bibles out. But I have two videos that I pre-recorded that I'll have ready for you sometime this afternoon before the 5 o'clock show. So anyway, I'll see you guys tonight live at 5. Live at 5.